There could be. It's a busy place. Yeah. Well, good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started, just kind of for sake of time. I'll tell you what, you're not going to hear a lot from us tonight. We want to hear a lot from you tonight. Okay? We're really wanting to gather a lot of feedback tonight, so I hope you're ready to get mic'd up and to share some of your insights and perspective. Thank you so much for engaging with us. You know, that's been one thing as we've talked at the board table that, can we get families in the community engaged in the summer? And in a resounding yes, we were able to do that. This is definitely part of a process. We're going to take a little bit deeper dive into what we learned through the survey that we conducted from June 27th to July 7th. June 27th to July 7th, yeah. I tell you what, I don't think I can call myself the new superintendent anymore, kind of starting year 4. When I arrived here, we had a lot of projects going on. There was a number of construction projects going on. And as we've continued to do kind of an audit of our buildings and thinking about being future focused, right? Thinking about how to maintain buildings and have them equipped in a way, right, that we can be successful with our students well into 2035, 40, 50, and maintain them in the way that we need to do that, from HVAC systems to carpet replacement cycles, painting, all those kinds of things. We've been kind of studying this. We know a lot about our buildings. We really know a lot about our buildings. In the last 18 months, some of the gentlemen sitting up here have been doing an audit of our buildings, walking through them, really thinking about what those needs are. And what we really found out, if you will, is that the needs, Jill, to not only get them back to a standard that you would expect as a parent, but also to accelerate us to where we want to be throughout the next 25, 30 years. We realized that through Pebble and Save, we weren't going to be able to get where we needed to be. And so what we started to have conversations about is, what's another way can we not only get our buildings and our classrooms and our schools back to a standard, but also accelerate it to the expectations you have, thinking future ready, and getting our students prepared for something really cool after high school. That's why we're here, okay? And so we want to listen to you tonight and share your experiences. I'm going to kind of guide you through a conversation. We do believe, though, that you need some context first, and so we're going to provide you a little bit of context around school financing and some other pieces that will make a little bit more sense to you as we have this conversation. Did we get past? Yeah, and that's what we're doing. So we conducted this survey. Sorry, I didn't pause and give you the signal. So we conducted a survey, like I said, that ended on July 7th. We found out a lot about what our community, our parents, our staff really think about our buildings and how they can contribute to the efforts that we're making. And that was really important to me, very important to the board, because we've anchored so much of our work into the desired daily experiences that were shared by our parents, by our students, and by our staff. So hopefully people in this room took that survey almost a year and a half ago. What are the desired daily experiences you want for yourself as a parent and what you want for your students? And we continue to anchor back to that. We had 2,488 responses. We were pretty tickled with that end. That's a pretty good response rate, particularly I wouldn't even say particularly in summer. I would just say, Jill, and in research, that's a pretty good return rate. 1,826 have or had children in the district, and 1,300 of the respondents actually resided in our boundaries. So that could be staff members and just community members that maybe raised their kids and now they're here. So here's what we learned. I think it seemed like that should work, right? It seemed like that's a signal. So here's what we learned. And so at our last board meeting, I looked at the board and I said, the question we really need to answer tonight is, do we have evidence that suggests that we should go for a bond referendum vote in November of 2025? Here's what we found out. When you look at the question was, how likely, I think, Brian, would you to support a bond referendum? If I do some really quick math, it looks like 74% said they're very likely or somewhat likely to support that. So between our N, which was 2,500, and 74% of our N saying, yeah, I think that's something that I could support, the board decided, yep, and kind of gave us directive, let's keep moving forward. And I said, okay, if we're going to continue to move forward, we need to go take a deeper dive, do some focus groups, if you will. You can call this a city hall. I'm kind of calling it a focus group, and learn more about the experience our families are having in our schools to help us really design some of the concepts that we believe will enhance education in West Des Moines schools and make us that destination district. So that's why you're here tonight, okay? I want to share this with you a little bit. You might be asking yourself this, because I did as well, and I kind of geek out when it comes to the research and learning about these things. If you're wondering, can facilities and what you do with facilities and upgrades and make them, and raise that standard, can that contribute to student achievement? Because we're here to educate, empower, and inspire lifelong learners. That's our mission statement. Can it do that? This is what the research says. Absolutely. And I thought this was very interesting. When you think about air quality in the schools, okay? So the HVAC systems and the air quality in the schools, that impacts learning. That can be a distraction. The temperature control. I see a few teachers in here. I used to call them violent temperature variance. Some days it's hot, some days it's cold, it becomes a disruption. When you think about the psychological safety and the physical safety of students and staff. When you think about lights that might flicker and cause distraction as opposed to other lights. There's the environment, the educational environment can absolutely, research proven, connect to student outcomes. And what the research found, as I was reading this particular article, it increases the property values of the homes in the district. So there's that was just kind of a sideline finding in their study. So there's a lot of positives for the whole community, but it connects to student achievement. I think that's important because that's why we're here. So I just wanted to share that with you if you were wondering that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Maxwell.
Good evening, everyone. David Maxwell, former principal at Valley High School and now in a new role as Director of Strategic Outreach and Systems Change. And just to really quickly reiterate what Dr. Adams said, thank you so much for being here tonight and for taking time out of your busy schedules to give us the feedback that we need to help this move forward. One thing that attracts me and keeps me in West Des Moines is the belief and the idea that we are leaders in learning across the state of Iowa. That's something that has kept me in this district. This is my 21st year. And the belief that we set the standard. And when we think about the strategic plan and we think about those daily desired experiences, each of the focus groups had a focus on the learning environment, the students, families, and staff. They all talked about wanting to have future-ready classrooms and learning environments for our students and for our families. So when we think about creating those learning environments, how do we set the standard? How do we make sure that teachers, if they transfer between buildings or if students have to move between buildings, that there's not a discrepancy between the learning environments between one school and another, and that they believe that this feels like this other school. Now, we do understand that all schools have their own personalities. We get that just because of the neighborhoods where they are, but the learning environments should all feel very, very similar and at that future-ready, modern, that are best going to serve our students. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Tim, and he's going to carry it.
So thank you, David. And I'm Tim Simpkins, Director of Operations, and we put a group together early in October, or September, October, and kind of did building by building analysis. We went to some of the newer buildings like Clive and Crestview. We went to some of the other buildings that we needed to get up to Clive and Crestview's new areas, new areas that we've remodeled in the last couple of years, and wanting every student. My desire would be every student, every teacher has the same desired daily experience in this district, and you're proud to be a Valley Tiger no matter what school you go to. West Des Moines Valley is the school of choice, that's what we want. I'm from Central Iowa, been here all my life since 1968, and in the 70s and 80s and 90s and even the 2000s, we were the envy. West Des Moines Valley was the envy of an Ankeny, was the envy of a Waukee, and we need to get back to that place where we are the envy, we're the place where people want to go. So we put a group of teachers and administrators together, got some input from staff, started down this road of the standards that we want to perceive, did a workshop with the board, and I think we were all in agreement that the standard was what we want to be. We want to create standards, and we want to get to the standards, and we want to live the standards. And that's kind of where this all came into fruition, is how do we get to the standards in every building? How do we bring the older classrooms up to speed with the newer classrooms? Obviously, you can see this picture. The new classroom on the right, I believe, is at Clive, an older classroom, a newer classroom, and we've engaged FRK architects, work with them to do another analysis of all our buildings and let us know what it's going to take to get to that standard.
Hi, I'm Kurt Suber. I serve as Chief Financial Officer here at the district, and we're going to start off with a very short video that was created in recent times about Iowa school finance, and then I'll make some comments as we follow up on it. But I think it gives a nice brief overview of some of the dynamics of what school districts finance are all about in Iowa. So. just make a few comments here, and then we'll get to the rest of our session tonight. So I'm going to start. Why not start with numbers, right? So this is a look at how West Des Moines schools stacks up against metro districts in relation to property tax rates. So you can see here quite a bit by far we're the lowest of the metro districts. And we saw a pretty sizable decrease actually just for the previous year over what it was in the 23-24 school year. So that number is staying the same for the current year. Obviously a bond referendum would impact that and make it go beyond the 1222 that is today. But you can also get a clear picture of how we stack up again against those other districts in the metro. So this is just to broaden out beyond the metro, statewide. What does our property tax look like when we compare ourselves? Brian highlighted West Des Moines there, the lighter district kind of down the lower center. The more intense color, the darker color would be higher property tax rates. The lighter color, would be the lower tax rates. But that was for the year we just ended. But that gives you a sense of, again, where we stack up, not only just in the metro, but statewide. So how would a bond issue impact you as a property tax owner, either residential or commercial? We put together just a few scenarios. Both the residential and the commercial assume an assessed or quasi-market value of the property at $300,000. Why did we pick $300,000? The median price of a home in the West Des Moines area is about that. So that's why we picked that number. But you can see here, we haven't, and it will really depend on the feedback we receive from you and others. But two just examples, an $80 million bond, for example, would increase a residential property owner's taxes by a little over $10 a month or $124 over the course of the year. That represents a 90-cent increase in the tax rate. Likewise, with a $135 million bond, you can see what the tax rate would be monthly and also what it would be over the course of the year. And then because commercial property is taxed a little bit different than residential, we show that example as well. One of the questions raised in the short video was, why wouldn't we use PEPL or save money? What is PEPL? It's physical plant and equipment. It's a property tax levy that is approved, either a portion of it through our board action each year and a portion of it by you, the voters, over 10 years. So those dollars, in addition to SAVE, are the statewide penny for infrastructure. Both really have somewhat interchangeable uses. So I lump those two together and I say, okay, over the course of this year, we're just starting right now, it's about $23 million a year. The district's taken on and done some really nice projects, say at Valley Southwood, Stillwell, several of our elementaries, including Clive and Crestview were brought up earlier, Westridge, Fair Meadows. But all of those, to accelerate some of that work, we did take on debt from PEPL and borrowing against PEPL, borrowing against SAVE. So obviously we have to pay back that debt. So that means there's less discretionary money, if you will, left over for just the routine things like buses and technology and those kinds of things. So want to be just open and about that. Where do we stand right now? And then again, what are our obligations with those resources? So this gives you a sense again of how the debt plays in with when we think about PEPL and SAVE as kind of one pool of resource. You can see there that the really tall vertical bars are the debt principal and interest payments to repay that debt. And then you can see the other work that's been going on through those funding sources. And the reason I bring up those two funding sources is those are meant for infrastructure. And infrastructure could be anything from a vehicle to a lawnmower to putting a roof on a building, any of that. So it just gives you a sense of how significant the debt is. We're still getting things done. It just gets done slower because there's, again, more of a commitment to, first of all, repay the bonds. Some of those bonds will be repaid as soon as July of 29. Some of them will be repaid in 2031, and the rest of them are quite a ways out beyond that. So just give you some sense for those obligations. But again, a lot of good things going on despite having that responsibility. So this is what you might refer to as a spaghetti chart. There's a lot on here, but Iowa school finance is somewhat complex. But we focused that the third or fourth one down, the purple was the PEPL, and then several down in the blue was SAVE. Those are just two of those. The general fund I'll talk about last, just briefly, but it is our largest fund, but it also, again, as the video said, that's what we pay employee salaries and benefits out of, utilities, those kinds of things. But I think it's a useful chart, but you got to take a little time to digest it, and I know that's not what the purpose is tonight, is to be an expert in school finance. So just one slide on the general operating fund, because it is our largest fund. So I think it's, again, worth restating some of what was stated in the video. 80% of that goes to pay for compensation and for our employees. Other items listed right below there, including utilities and other things, are identified. But importantly, because of how Iowa school finance works, as it said in the video, we can't just move money around indiscriminately. So a bond issue would pay for infrastructure. The bond issue cannot pay for people. Likewise, the general fund is for people and some of those related costs, not for capital improvements. So they're really distinct funding streams, and we have to just appreciate that's the world we operate under or live in, and that's what the rules we have to abide by. And with that, I just encourage you, if you have specific questions on school finance as we go through this process over the next even months, feel free to reach out anytime. We'll be glad to meet individually or talk on the phone, whatever works best for you. Thank you.
Awesome. No, we're right on time. This is perfect. I started by saying and stating that we do know a lot about our buildings already, and with that 18-month kind of audit, I know that to be real frank, I know I need about $1 million worth of renovation upgrade to the Performing Arts Center at Valley High School, for instance. I know that. I know that I've got a carpet, particularly. I remember when I was in Stillwell, that has duct tape on it, and I know that I need to put a replacement cycle together. I know that we need to paint. I know that concrete is cracking all over the district. If you have concrete, something's cracking. Every year we pour concrete somewhere just to keep up with it. I will tell you that hailstorm about 3 years ago kind of helped us. We got a bunch of new roofs on our insurance company. So that really helps. So I really appreciate that. But I always used to say this, everything in your home has a life expectancy, right? The more you use it, the quicker it wears out. So imagine 2,300 kids running through your house, like up at Valley High School. Things are going to wear out. You know, kids are going to touch walls, kids are going to break things wear out. It's just the reality of your home, and it's the reality of our homes. And Jill, I think I'm going to call it our homes because we spend a lot of time here. And so when we think about just the replacement cycles and what we know about our buildings and what we know about the classrooms to bring it up to that next standard, it was really that spot. So I hope you heard that loud and clear from Tim et al., that as we kind of develop this standard, that we really believe that enhances what is happening in our classrooms for our teachers and our students, and do all that routine maintenance type of stuff that we were talking about, and do some things that take us to that destination district. We realize that I always say there's an old Western song, there's more month than money. And so thinking about how we make all of this happen, okay? So I'm going to take you through a walk in your mind, and I want some feedback about your experience and your children's experiences in our schools. You do need to mic up, and I have a couple people that are going to run the mic around, and we're going to start this way. We're going to start, I think, at early, right? We're going to start early childhood, I believe. The other thing is Brian is also monitoring a live feed, and we are taking questions or ideas or thoughts from the live feed as well and capture that. And I do have a lot of folks taking notes tonight, okay? I've got a number of people taking notes because we're going to process this similar to what we did with the survey results. So when you think about an early childhood experience, raise your hand if you had an early childhood experience here in our district with us. Perfect. So when you think about that and you think about the schools that it serves, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about the school site. Not the school, but the school site. When you think about the sidewalks and the parking lots and the playgrounds and the fill in the blank, not everything but the school building, give me some feedback on the experience that you've had within our buildings. Does that make sense? The school site. Picture yourself walking to school, walking up the sidewalk, paying attention to the landscaping, paying attention to the playground, paying attention to auxiliary buildings and things on there. What's your experience been, or where do you see some areas of improvement? This could also, quite frankly, a lot of our preschools are at our elementaries, so we can kind of keep this within the whole elementary experience. Okay, and this is don't be bashful, we need your feedback. What are you seeing out there as you walk up to your building and dropping your child off at the front door?
guess this wouldn't be specific just to early childhood, but I've heard feedback from multiple community members representing parents, teachers, that a lot of the playgrounds at elementary buildings are not in operating order or are just in need of replacement. And that Westridge in particular has broken swings, but somehow got a new fence. And so they were confused as to why that was appropriated that way. I know that Jordan Creek is right now updating a playground as well, but that money is actually coming from the PFC, I believe, and not actually from. So maybe speak more on how the playgrounds are funded and how, what that cycle looks like.
So you had a lot of heads nodding behind you as you were, a lot of heads nodding behind you. So and tonight we're just gathering, and I think that is awesome feedback. So what you're saying is you're kind of walking up, you're seeing playgrounds that just need some TLC. Awesome.
I don't think that Jordan Creek is a scalable model. I don't think all of the schools can fundraise to improve their playground.
Yep. Thank you. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So let's keep as you're walking up to that front of the building.
And speaking of Jordan Creek, my youngest went to Tiger Cubs for 2 years at Jordan Creek, and their preschool playground is atrocious. And I'll just use that word, it's muddy. It's one of the teachers told me they didn't feel it was safe, but there's no money that's put towards it. But then you drive past Westridge, and they have a brand new fenced-in, gorgeous preschool playground. So how is there, and then if you go over to Hillside, their playgrounds are practically non-existent. And our kids don't get enough time outside, and that's a whole other subject. So how is it that there's such disparity? Because I've been in buildings and they're not that much disparity.
Yep, I appreciate that. So now we're getting into equity about what you're seeing at buildings. So you're wanting to see some consistency, continuity across the district. The same, and you know what? I really appreciate that because it's exactly what we're talking about, anchoring to those desired daily experiences. They don't shift depending on the elementary that you're at. So thank you for lifting that up. Yep. So, yep. Awesome. Thank you.
I would also say I'm a parent that drops off a child in a car. So I drive through the parking lot or, the drive-up lane every day. And the concrete issue is,
it's real.
I guess it helps parents go slower.
It's
so
real.
There's that.
It's real. Or you get lost, you come out.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
there you are.
Especially with all the crazy weather, I feel like that makes more potholes, but the potholes are real.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. That is not a fun project, to be honest with you. I like things that go up, right? Projects that go up get your attention. Flat work doesn't get your attention, but it needs to be done, and concrete is expensive. So having a replacement cycle, because it's cracking somewhere right now. I'm just not sure where it's at, but we're constantly replacing concrete. So thank you for sharing that experience, because I think we believe that as well. Hopefully you've seen at Indian Hills, we spent a lot of time putting concrete up there, up at Jordan Creek, places. I think we had concrete at Valley High School. I think we had concrete at Crossroads Park, if I remember right. I don't have them all memorized, but absolutely that's a big issue. So thank you. So let's start walking into the building now. So start thinking about how engaging is it? Does it grab your attention? What do the buildings look like when you first walk in? You walk your child in for the first time into the hallways. What are you seeing as you walk into the classrooms? What's your experience been as it relates to the facility that way? Okay, so now we're inside the building.
I would say that over the years, my exposure has been that things have become more sterile environments. They're not as welcoming to the kid, especially at the elementary level. Valley takes on its own, requirements for that age kids. But I feel like district-wise, we've made decisions to make things not look like they're places where kids are.
Okay, so is it like the colors? Is it like the secure front entrance? Is it like, what is it exactly?
This is a loaded statement because my wife is an art teacher in
I
the
understand
district.
that. I
know, I feel
I know
uncomfortable
exactly
somewhat
who
saying
you
this.
are.
But I think in this is true, she's been at multiple schools, so it's not just where she is now.
Yep.
Getting the things that kids do, artwork, or that's during the school year, but to make it feel like it's someplace where they want to be and have fun, and not be just walls that I look like I'm walking into an office building, and things like that. I'm not going to go on the color side of things because there's people that are way better at that. But it needs to be more vibrant. It needs to be engaging. It needs to be someplace when the kids walk in that they're excited. And some of that challenge has been because, and understandably, because of some of the security things that have been put in place. You know, I've joked when I've gone to drop things off for my wife that I expect to hear the clicking noise of the prison on the doors, you know, just because of, and that's just the nature of our environment now. But that takes away from that welcoming aspect.
Oh,
and I understand that's
no, and I
constraint.
love that. Then how do you offset that?
Yeah.
Because that is important to families. When I think about the desired daily experiences, parents and students want to feel safe, physically safe, psychologically safe. A secure front entrance is that. But then how do you offset that? I call it an environment for education. So it screams school. You know, I used to tell my teachers, I want it to scream science if you're a science teacher, scream art if you're an art teacher, right? So I really appreciate that. Environment for education. Thank you so much. So you're still in this school, you're walking around, what are you experiencing? All right, Emily's experiencing something. Here she.
Some things that I would suggest, I think I can speak to Westridge because that's the building I have experience with in Indian Hills. For our class size, some of the classrooms are cramped and small. I think inconsistency where, you know, Westridge does have this beautiful new addition, but then the ceiling was leaking in several places this year. You know, so obviously this is not intentional on anyone's part. It's wear and tear of a building that was built decades ago. I feel like it's probably teacher specific in terms of how you decorate your classroom. So I have not experienced Westridge in particular feeling non-kid-like, but I could see how certain classrooms and other, you know, just personal choices could feel like that. I do think not just because of the cramped nature, but just we've learned a lot about how brains work and how sensory systems process stimulation over the last 40, 50 years. So to me, as someone who works in that area, I'm a speech pathologist, having classroom and just building spaces that are more intentionally supportive of kids with different sensory needs in terms of noise dampening, just kind of across the board, seating options, things like that. That is something I always notice when I'm volunteering in the classroom, that you can tell there are some kids that just really aren't comfortable in that setting.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that was something that, you know, when Tim did his audit with his group, he was meeting with Christy Benz and he was meeting, you know, with Natalie French and meeting with others to talk about programming. I love what the board, before I got here, committed to, you know, in talking to Jill and Jeff Hicks in particular. You know, there was Title I reading surfaces going on in the hallways. You know, there was just different programming that didn't have the adequate space necessary to do its programming. And so that's where some of those decisions were made to help and support students. Awesome. So we still need a commitment to that, is what I'm hearing. Awesome. Okay. And you can also mix in, what are your students telling you about this experience in terms of in the classroom and, you know, what teachers have to work with and what the room is like, and when I think about instructional technology and some of those kinds of things, I want to hear about that experience.
To piggyback off of what she had said, my son goes to Crossroads, so that's the school I have experience with. And when you walk in, and I think it's just the way that the school was built in the time that it was built, but it is kind of a dark building, and it's not necessarily paint color, it's just lack of windows. And the windows that we do have, we've put the security film on them, which is a security thing, and it makes sense, but it does make the whole building overall feel very dark and kind of small. And then some of the classrooms, like when my son was in first grade, he was in an interior room, so he did not have any windows at all, and his teacher did a great job of putting fairy lights in certain places to try to lighten the room up, but it did have a distinct, like I'm in a basement feel
Feedback.
when I
Great.
was in there for,
Yeah.
class parties and stuff.
Yeah.
So, and they spend a lot of time in their classrooms. So it is just kind of a small, dark kind of feeling.
Yeah. Thank you for lifting that up, because I said, can the facility contribute? And yet lighting is a big part of that. Lighting is a big part. And there are things that we can do. LED lighting is just taking it all to a whole nother level, regardless of windows and what we can do for lighting and brighten things up. Paint colors do the same thing. So thanks for lifting that up. So think about in that classroom, think about the instructional technology and what's going on, maybe what you guys are talking, the students are talking about at the dinner table. There's been tremendous feedback. This is reaffirming, this is helping us.
So my older daughters went to Clive before it was added on. I've been back in there and it is beautiful. My youngest went to Western Hills and she will be starting Stillwell. And then I'm also a substitute teacher, so I've been through a lot of the buildings and can see discrepancies between them. I would say that Western Hills, Fair Meadows, Crossroads do seem to have kind of that older, darker, feels like lower ceilings. I don't know if they are, but it kind of feels closed in. And then also with Western Hills having the dual immersion now, I feel like we've added a bunch of staff, support staff, certified staff, and so we've got teachers, 2 and 3 in a room, or maybe using an old storage closet that they're teaching out of. So space-wise, it's really cramped in there. But I do like the improvements that have been done with the other schools.
I appreciate that. And we find that storage is always, there's just never enough storage in our buildings. And I do, somebody lifted this up, so some of the projects that we did, talking about Westridge, butt up against other areas of the building that we haven't touched. I'll be frank, I'm a big believer when you go in and you touch a building, you get the whole building where it belongs and then move on. And so we do have a number of buildings where, and I did say this, so I'm going to say, sometimes I just say what I think. And so I'm at Crestview and I got the best floor covering in the district, butted up against the worst floor covering in the district. And it's just making me scratch my head going, what are we doing here? So when we go into a building and we touch a building, we get that building where it belongs and then we move on. And so I think when I hear about that, I'm hearing the word discrepancy, I'm hearing the word equity, I'm hearing the word, that's what we're talking about at that standard. So thank you. You're reinforcing what we believe to be true in our buildings. Okay. Sorry, Jackie, go ahead.
Another thing that I saw, at least if we're still on the topic of elementary,
Absolutely.
would be that like a lot of the elementary schools don't necessarily have like an adequate like whole school gathering place. Jordan Creek, for instance, like if they have an whole school assembly, all of the kids are just sitting on the gym floor. But then also for like any of the performing groups or any other kinds of like special speakers or anything that they would bring in, there's not like a logical way to put seating in so that everybody can actually see. Like even something as simple as like those pull-out risers or something on the back wall would make it so much easier to utilize that space and to make sure that our youngest performers and our youngest kids have those gathering spaces too.
I appreciate that. As a former elementary principal, they get on their knees, so then the people behind them get on their knees, and everybody's on their knees, and everybody's standing. I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been to a jillion assemblies like that.
So just one additional comment that as I think we all have like fairly similar experiences, but as you and the board are working through plans, it has been our experience, if we're assuming that boundaries are going to stay the same or, maybe they're not, but depending on that plan, there are schools like Westridge that have, 200 plus more students in them, but have the same number of classrooms for like, we have one music room that can't fit the whole 5th grade band in, so they don't have whole group band, things like that. Our, STEM lab is now a second music room. just kind of looking at making sure that the population, the number of kids attending each building, the number of spaces reflect what that looks like in the number of specials classrooms and how many they fit.
In any kind of programming too, right? Excellent, thank you. Okay, let's, oh, no, Brad Rose. Hey, how's retirement? How's things going?
I don't know where you're at on this. I should know, but I don't. But like my kids went to Crossroads. Most of the classrooms have an exterior wall. So when there's a tornado warning or something like that, they have to go to an east or a north-south hallway, which are the most dangerous hallways in schools for tornadoes. So I don't know where we're at on getting like, I only know Crossroads. I've been to every building, but I'm not sure if all of them have been updated that way.
Gotcha.
So that's just something I think about safety-wise.
Okay. So let's go to the junior high. Let's go with and same thing, the school site. Let's go back to the school site. Now we've got more going on the school site. So let's think about the school site at both Indian Hills and Stillwell. As you're walking in on the school site, what are you seeing? What are you seeing at Indian Hills and Stillwell? Not the building, just the school site, everything but the building. What are you seeing out there? What's missing?
The parent drop-off and pickup line at Stillwell is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. It is not logical.
I was going to say that the concrete looks great, though.
There's a lot of concrete over there.
That neighborhood, thank God
Right.
that construction is done. But
They dug
Just
a big hole.
figuring out ways to logistically make it easier to get your child to school.
Gotcha. I appreciate that. I will tell you that the police they're glad that you're not on Grand anymore. I will tell you that.
I just say that the outdoor play space, like Indian Hills, could use more parking, obviously, but at the same time, there's no track. Every school in our league has a junior high track. We don't have a track at either junior high, and that allows for a lot of play, a lot of different activities. If you had some type of soccer field that had a track around or something.
And we've got two very big green spaces that are used almost like public parks that are used. And when I think about my relationship, I've got City of Clive here tonight. Indian Hills is that space is used in a variety of different ways. And so can we create some synergy with that? I appreciate you lifting that up. So appreciate that.
I think we have plenty of parking at Indian Hills. I pick up my kid there. I can use the street parking. So I agree. I think that green space would be nice to be utilized for green space and not concrete over. I walk that neighborhood and there are always people using that field. So it's just a really nice gathering space for community.
Yeah. Brad, were you going to pave that green space?
But putting a special hat on tonight, I'm Pete DeCook. I'm the Assistant City Manager for the City of Clive. So building on that point about the park space, it really is, even though it's the school district's property, that great field at Indian Hills is the neighborhood park, along with the other thing that you see very close to the school, which is the Clive Greenbelt, which I think also gives it enormous character, the whole sort of campus experience that we have down in that beautiful natural space. But the cities, and I don't want to speak too forcefully here for West Des Moines, but I certainly can speak for Clive when it comes to Indian Hills. The city council in Clive is very interested in how that space can be further developed using dollars from both the city and other sources so that it can become that amenity that serves both the school and the rest of the neighborhood. And as we think about other opportunities across the district where you've got a playground that can serve as a neighborhood playground and a school playground, similar to what we're thinking about up in the Crestview neighborhood now, those are some opportunities to make our dollars go further and create new dimensions of value.
I appreciate that, Pete. So behind the scenes, what you need to know is really the relationship between the City of Clive in particular and the West Des Moines School District. We meet regularly. We know we're serving the same folks and really having conversations just like that. How can we make sure that we're not redundant in services, redundant in what we're offering, and just partner together more. So thank you so much for that and for being here tonight. Okay, so then you're walking in. Picture yourself walking into Stillwell. You're walking into Indian Hills. What are you seeing? I hear, we got a single secure front entrance. It's safe. We want kids to feel safe. We want them to feel psychologically safe. That's a part of what we do. How does it feel? You're walking in. What are you seeing? What are your kids telling you about as you walk into Indian Hills and Stillwell? They're not talking to you. Okay. So yours are like mine at that age. Gotcha.
I would say, again, Indian Hills. When I walk in, I do really appreciate that the building reflects kind of a sense of Tiger pride. There's lots of, paintings, etc., put up that we've got, the cool neon sign, Indian Hills. So I do think that is very welcoming. Again, classrooms could use a refresh, and some of them are very small for the amount of kids that go into them. And I would also say the auditorium space, frequently standing room only, honestly, for sure at Indian Hills and also in the brand new one at Stillwell, is the shows that I have been to, their vocal performances, there's typically still people standing because there's not enough room.
Thank you for that.
I would echo that. I loved the new auditorium, but it felt so tiny. And with such vibrant music and fine arts communities that we have in West Des Moines and that has historically been there, it was kind of a letdown to walk in there the first time. And also to see that every single door there had a tornado shelter sign, and I found one auditorium sign. And I know it's also a tornado shelter, and that is fabulous and it is important. But when the day-to-day use of that building is supposed to be a performance space, people were walking in for concerts. Where's the auditorium? Where's the auditorium? And they couldn't find it because it was labeled as a tornado shelter. Maybe that's changed this year because I haven't been in there this year, but that was a source of a frustration for such a beautiful space.
Yeah, trust me, it's gonna be used more for a performance area than a tornado shelter. I sure hope.
So I was one of the parent volunteers. I'm an Indian Hills family, but we were at Stillwell for a performing arts joint venture. And I had to tell parents, you can't come in because we don't have enough space. We're trying to shuffle to find space. So my opinion would be that when we do Indian Hills, at some point, we need to make it larger so that it will service all the families. We need to figure out how many families we have in the middle school that would be at a show choir performance or whatever it is, and make sure we have enough seats. And maybe some seats for the kids, because the kids then couldn't watch. So it was a bummer.
I would say maybe all around the district, better signage, not just for which door to go to at Valley or at the junior highs, but to get the names of the schools up on the school. I mean, I feel like Stillwell, is it junior high or middle school? I feel like it's so nondescript in those corners around Valley, on the corners of the street where it says Valley High School. It's like, this is Valley. This is a good school. This is a cool school. You want to wow it with, this is where you are. This is Valley. This is the place to be. I think Crossroads, isn't there a circle window that has a big tiger paw in it? I love that. I mean, just that tiger pride in the community to just kind of blinking out. I mean, it's probably all far down on the wish list, but I think they'd be nice to have.
I've heard that a lot tonight, whether we call it branding the school or pride around that. So you're talking exterior signage. I thought you were getting ready to go kind of like waypointing interior signage. I think you're talking about that too, though, right? Just how to maneuver through the schools. I also think that that's really important when we work with law enforcement to find our areas and find where we belong. So let's make sure we get signage, both exterior and interior, on the list.
I don't know if we're in a position that if we're talking about what we saw or things we'd like to see. Is that okay? So besides the
You're
sport.
just an average citizen.
Yeah. So my kids, all the intramurals and stuff at Indian Hills were like at 6 a.m. because of space. And it does. I'm not talking just from the former athletic director and activities director. I'm saying like let's have space for basketball and all those things. But there's a lot of kids that need stuff to do after school. So I'd love to see the courts made into pickleball courts or something, or a place where kids can shoot baskets. We got a lot of kids that need a place to hang out till 5 o'clock. I know that adds pressure to the school to supervise them, but parents that can't. We have more and more kids that just maybe aren't out for our athletics, which is fine. But can we do some intramural stuff after school and have space for them, whether it be indoor or outdoor? Yep. And it could be music as well. Anything, skateboarding, rock climbing, whatever.
So now, Brad, are you sharing that? You're saying that 7-12 now? Is that kind of stuff? Okay, good. I heard he volunteered. I heard volunteer. I hear volunteer. Yeah.
I'd just like to echo on the space in all the places, and it's basically in all the places, probably except for Valley where it has the pack, that there needs to be more space for meeting, like groups and things and activities. The Stillwell auditorium, as nice as it looks, the district let us down. I feel like, as whatever the decisions were made to make it the size that it is and how it works, it wasn't what it probably should have been in the end, and that's going to be something that, as you've heard now, that's that building that trust up on those things that, hey, we're focused on those priorities, and if we want to be a district that people want to come to, whether that's the orchestra programs, whether that's the sports programs or things like that, but it's also the academics. I always liked the 4As.
4As, yeah.
4As, and I think that's great. A great way to look at things from a district perspective, but that's at every level. And we've really kind of lost sight of that, it feels like, and money will do that. The budget challenges and whatever else happens. But all of those spaces an elementary school should have. I think Western Hills still does a musical, or they did for a long time. That was just wonderful. My kids didn't go there, but always heard great things about that. Providing spaces that those things can happen at all the schools as being a priority, along with what Brad is mentioning too, the opportunities for other things that are outside of the normal day.
So in your opinion, what does that space look like?
And that's a really hard answer. I mean, that's why there's professionals that do architecture and things to come up with
that's fine.
Multi-use space.
Yep. I would answer the same way. So you're talking about, but large space like?
I mean, you've got to be able to say that the school should have a place where they can get together, and Valley has the field house. I don't know if you could fit everybody from Valley in there if they all came. Yeah. But something like that in each one of the schools probably needs something like that you have flexibility there, and then with different seating options or things like that, so you can put on different programs, invite the parents in, especially at the elementary level, because as a parent who I think was involved through my kids' education and throughout the time, that's the time when we as a district need to get them engaged. And those band programs, choir concerts, as challenging as they can be to sit through sometimes and listen, those are the times when you get the parents engaged and involved to do things. And the same holds true for the athletic side and other things, but you've got to have the space to allow that to happen.
Gotcha.
And we struggle with that.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. You did. You answered just like I needed you to. I was. It's just how that space is used, and I appreciate that. Yep. So we're in the June. We can start mixing and matching. We can go in the junior high, go in the high school. What are your kids telling you about the experience that they're having as it relates to the classrooms and what's in the classrooms and other areas within the buildings, and from science labs to I don't want to lead the witness. Just what are they telling you about the experience within the schools?
Thank you. Okay, so from the high school perspective, parking, which I think would help with attendance. Sometimes my son had lots of parking tickets.
Where are you going with this?
I don't know how we fix that outside of knocking down buildings up to the north at all parking and building a new facility there of some sort for athletics. And so we've talked a lot about music and arts, but I have an athlete, and he graduated in 2025. and every football player that wanted to play football in college did off of our team. Is that about right, Brad? Yep. So at every level. So I think that we could put some emphasis there, better concession stands for all of the athlete, football, baseball, softball. I'd like to see a better like Hall of Fame area at the high school level. So for those kids that were awarded, there's better display. And like more space just to hang, just to celebrate those athletes. Like it was hard for us to hang posters. And when you go to Northwest or the Southeast Polk or the Ankeneys, they have space, great display areas just to celebrate the athletes. So for everybody. Oh, and a new pool. I heard that's needed. And I was a swimmer, so that'd be great.
Kimber just spent all our money. It's all gone. Thanks for being here tonight. Yeah. What else? When you think about that experience, instructional technology, the classroom experience, I thank you for lifting up the 4 A's.
I have been in the science rooms in Valley, and they look like my science classroom when I went to high school, and I graduated in 1992. So I don't know that they've changed that much in, you know, as far as, I would imagine there's, you know, new cooler things that they could have in there to kind of heighten the science experiments and stuff.
I think the periodic table of elements has remained the same. I think that's the same. There's been additions. What else? Now, you know, just as I feel the energy kind of leaving, everybody's that wanted to share is shared. Now it's just kind of potpourri, things, you know, just your experience just across the district. Maybe this is a little bit of a dreaming session, or how do we get to that destination district place? Because the competition is real, okay? There's a lot of school choice. I will tell you, families pick West Point schools. It's pretty cool. We get, and when it comes to open enrollment, we get a lion's share of open enrollment from Waukee schools. Way more kids come from Waukee than go to Waukee. Way more kids, and then also Des Moines Public Schools. What, you know, I've got a few anecdotes that I don't know. I don't want to overgeneralize, but a lot of the course offerings at the high school. So instead of getting English 9 in one district, you can get 4, 5, 6 different opportunities in English within your 9th grade year. Orchestra is a huge, thank you, yes. Yeah, when I talk to families, they'll talk about the orchestra program. Absolutely, I hear that a lot. Yep.
That's a big one.
Yep, yep. So there is definitely some real signature moves that we're making as a district that we want to continue to enhance and grow, because it is drawing families, and it's for a different experience than what they can have at their resident district. Thank you for asking that.
As we, I'll say space again. And when you think of like our Sparkle cheer team, when you think of adding a 3rd show choir, the dance teams, that just it's really hard to find space for everyone at a reasonable time. You know, it's always open at 9:30 at night. Right. You know, but so everybody would like to go after school, and I don't want to waste space, but I think we got to think about the usable space maybe as we build multi-purpose. You know, like we think of elementary, the lunchroom can also be used as a room, and so more multi-purpose rooms. We had almost 9 new clubs last year apply. We have kids doing unbelievable things, and they just need space. So,
thanks, Brad. Our students are busy. They're involved. They're engaged. They're there all hours of the night. Mm-hmm. I've been at Valley High School really, really late, and there the musical was practicing, and the sound team had to be there because the music team was practicing.
And the lighting team.
Yeah, and I had a chance to kind of talk to them. It's like, and that's, as you can imagine, when they're getting ready for that, it's every night, all night. Our kids are involved, and I love it. I love it, the opportunities. But that means we need space. Thank you. What else do you want me to know? This is your time. I so appreciate that you came in. You're engaged as you're going to Emily. I've told parents this a lot in my time. If you want kids to think something's important, they better catch you doing that. So I certainly hope you told your children, hey, I'm going to a meeting tonight to talk about the facilities and how that could enhance the school experience that you're having in West Des Moines. If you didn't do that when you get home. Guess what we talked about, honey? We talked about how the facilities could enhance your experience in school. I think that's so important. It sends a strong message to your children. With that, Emily.
Really, it's just building upon what everyone else has said of, I think that it's really important to look at multi-use spaces, that sort of not just indoor space for athletic practice, but making sure that we have the space to really show off all of these incredible opportunities that we have so that everybody has a chance to take part in them, and go watch them, because we have all of that space. Another thing, just kind of thinking of city partnerships, I do think emphasizing that this is where we all live. This is where the community that we want to see flourish, become the place everybody wants to live. I do think, I would hope that there are more opportunities for partnering with the city for multi-use facilities, such as Kimber said, the pool. West Des Moines has one really old YMCA, and what an opportunity that would be to provide a partnership for something like that is available to the community as a whole, but then also helps to give our students access to swim lessons that are life-saving, as well as our synchronized swimming and swim teams.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to get very point about that 9-12 experience. So Steve Shapa, he's in the room, you want to wave, new executive director of secondary. And one of the things that he's already saying that's just really resonating with me and the board is it's one high school, 3 campuses, okay? So we've got Valley High School, we've got Valley Southwoods, we've got Walnut Creek campus. Talk to me about the 9-12 experience of your children. I've heard, Jill, I've heard stories. I want to hear about that experience and how we can enhance that through these conversations.
In terms of like multiple campuses, Southwoods is not equal. We've kind of figured that out. Like Southwoods, I used to teach there. I have a student that will be going there in about a year. Southwoods does not have a high school feel, not at all. It definitely feels like a middle school in a lot of ways. And I don't necessarily know that what the solution would be to that. But Southwoods increasingly in the past several years have been having more and more discipline issues and attendance issues. So I would love to see how we could use the whole idea of the building campuses to bring Southwoods into the equation like they're actually part of the high school experience.
Thank you. That's kind of, yeah, why I'm asking that. Yep. Yep. So in the survey, it was very specific to high school. We didn't do a great job of teasing out the idea that there's really 3 campuses there. So that's kind of why I'm asking that question. And just how it flows. I really appreciate that. How that flows from, the junior highs to Valley Southwoods to the high school, and then the role that Walnut Creek campus plays, and if you've had experience out there. It's kind of what I'm looking for. That would help me with some feedback. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
I don't have experience at Valley or Valley Southwoods yet, but I will say my oldest child is in some classes that will mean he has to be traveling to other buildings, and already in 8th grade, that's a source of anxiety for him of like, I'm going to have to be going back and forth. How am I going to get there? All of that.
And we do have that. So the connection that I'm making is there's some students at Valley Southwoods that travel to Valley for some classes and vice versa. And if you're saying if you kind of minimize that. And Walnut Creek, yes, thank you. And Walnut Creek.
I think just to add to that, and specifically what you said, with Valley Southwoods, it does feel like a junior high, and I think it's because they don't have a pecking order. So there's nobody there to tell them, step in line. I think the facilities are great there. The gym's awesome. But yeah, I think that's where that disciplinary comes from. So I don't know how you solve for that outside of 2 high schools. So.
This might not belong here, but I was chatting with some kiddos that have to go back and forth between the 2 buildings, and parking. If you're at Southwoods and you have to go back to Valley, you have to park really far away, and then you're really, really late to your next class. So an idea that they had was if they had parking kind of close to the building that was reserved for kids that have to go back and forth, if you could get a special tag or something to allow those kids not to have to walk so far, just to shorten that commute for them. So.
No, that's great. I need a superintendent spot too.
Yeah.
I need that, so.
Don't you have valet parking?
Oh, yeah.
So as a parent that has had Walnut Creek experience, that is a gem for our district. And when I said that to someone there when we were benefiting from that, they said, don't tell everybody because we don't have enough space or whatever, or enough staff to deal with it. But I don't know how that compares to other districts. Are we one of the only ones that has a campus like Walnut Creek, or?
It varies. I will tell you, very few have an alternative school as opposed to a program or a school within a school.
And I don't know if there's a
lot
way
of
then
different
to build that up some so that it becomes, as we look at the school for the future and we talk about equity and we talk about drawing other students in, is that an angle also that we want to look at? I don't have enough experience there to say, except for when my kids were there for kindergarten during the transition time, or one of them. I don't know what the space needs are there, if they're, I don't know that. But I do think that it's a benefit to our district that not everybody knows is there, but it is for those that need it. It's wonderful.
I'm only sharing this because you wanted us to tell you what our kids were saying. And this is one thing that I really specifically remember because it was hilarious. Their first day after coming home from Valley, their 10th grade year, the thing that they were most excited about was, we can have food in the classrooms. We can have drinks. We can have snacks. Our teachers don't care. It's not like Southwoods last year. They wouldn't let us have anything. And so just that additional freedom of feeling like they get some power, I guess, whether it comes through snacks or something else. I just remember that being a really specific thing that they were super excited about.
Now we're just going to kind of open the mic. What haven't you, and maybe whisper something to your neighbor. If this is a safe place. If you're not somebody that likes to grab a microphone, just whisper something to your neighbor. I would also offer you come up and you talk to Tim or you talk to Kurt. You're not afraid to do that. Or send an email. I would offer that as well. We want your feedback.
Well, if you're around Valley at night, that open space, those kids in that neighborhood or kids that drive in, they really take care of it. There's soccer and activities going on all the time. Even though we have games going on over at the fields, you look over at that soccer, football, track area, and those kids are taking care of that space. And I remember being nervous about that being an open space all the time. And those kids are really taking care of it. And I think we need to think about that at Southwoods as well. That's an old track space that really, maybe you can ride a bike on it, but I don't think people run on it much. Maybe some people walk on it, but that area where that field is would be a great space for kids as well. And just, again, opportunity for our whole community to exercise and walk and do things like that.
Yep. Thank you, Brian.
This is a curious question. So now with ESA being in play for all schools in private schools in 25-26, we're talking about funding and we're talking about open enrollment and drawing people in. We have some excellent private schools here that if you do the math with ESA and then funding from the school, they can go to school for free. Are we concerned about losing students to some of those schools, which I will not name?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of ESAs, and publicly that way. We monitor that close. I think this year, and maybe Kurt, you want to pipe in, but just so you're aware, it's real and there is an impact. You know, when we look at resident enrollment in West Des Moines, it's going down, and it's gone down for the last 8-10 years. What we've maintained is because open enrollment continues to go up. People are choosing here, which is really cool. What I noticed in the numbers this year, and I had to scratch my head for a second and then get my head right around this. Resident-wise, I think we went to, I'm going to do a little butcher paper math, about 10 students. I think it's more like 6. But then the ESAs went up by 200, 300. And so okay, that doesn't pencil out. Oh, they were already there. They were already in the private school. Now they're just eligible for the voucher. It wasn't more families taking advantage of it. They were already there. They just became eligible for it. And so that's the trend we're seeing. We're not seeing people jump ship and go to them. We're seeing people become eligible that are already there and taking advantage of it. Is that a fair way to kind of put it? Yeah.
To piggyback off of concerns about ESAs, I think that the school district really, and all school districts really need to focus on the message of public schools actually have better academic results than private schools do, especially in the state of Iowa. And that's with skewed testing, because private schools don't have to test all of their special needs students. So even though they're skewing their results better, we still outperform them. So just continue to keep that message going.
So what hasn't been said in the room that needs to be said tonight?
Well, I don't know if it needed to be said,
here we go.
I was closely involved with the installation of the video board at Valley Stadium, as Brad can attest, and we're nearing the end of its life expectancy. That was installed in November of 2016. And generally, if you can get 10 years out of a piece of electronic outdoor equipment, you're doing pretty well. So I would hope that that might be a project that could be considered as we look down the road over the next year and get this bond issue passed. Technology has advanced a lot since 2016 also, so enable us to bring that up to a state-of-the-art position, which we're kind of falling behind others out there. And that would be another area that would help set the school apart, attract people.
I appreciate that. It goes back to everything wears out. Everything in our schools wears out. And so just the replacement cycles for concrete and electronics and buses, right, and all the technologies and whatnot, that in itself, the replacement cycles is expensive. And then to maintain, like in the PAC, for instance, there's new technologies that weren't even around, and now we need to get those within the PAC and bring that up to speed. So thank you for that. There was another. Oh, there we go. There it is.
I'm not sure how this works with the school district and the city, but I think it's important to think about, because we are kind of more of a landlocked community, and if we want to attract enrollment and stopgap enrollment loss, we have to think about affordability and availability of housing and what that looks like, because it's becoming increasingly scarce for people with young families with kids to be able to afford housing in West Des Moines.
I had this very conversation with a city council member yesterday, and you are exactly right. There is some development coming into the Raccoon River area that's going to, when you think about infrastructure and the timing, yeah. I just don't know the timeline. I have said that our greatest strengths, our greatest weakness, people come here to love it here and stay here. And so, yeah, we've got a lot of homes. A lot of homes. Everybody just kind of cringed, but say with empty nesters, and there's just not availability, which is awesome. Yeah. I mean, they're right. I mean, I could use a house for 2 kids, and I hear that, and that'll flip as well. And so there's going to be. So I love how you say stopgap, because we're kind of in the lean years, so to speak, right now, and we'll kind of come out of that. But right now, what do we do in order to get ourselves over that hump? And that's why we're here tonight. So I appreciate that, really do. Yep.
I wanted to piggyback off the stadium comments earlier with the video board and a lot of things over there. When that stadium was built, it was state of the art and the new biggest, best thing in the area, and now it's not. With Northwest and Southeast Polk having new stadiums, and Ankeny's got the addition, and like Johnston, thank you. It's no longer that way, but we have a lot of awesome things there between football and Valley Fest and things like that. So a lot of that space needs to be updated to compete with those other areas, and with updated equipment needs, technology needs, Wi-Fi needs, all of that. So I think that definitely should be something that should be touched on in the mix of that.
I really appreciate that. I hope during this conversation you're like, that's why they're considering a bond referendum in November of 2025. Because those are the things we want to do for you as the families that we serve, and those are the things that we want to do for the students that we serve, is have spaces that are adequate enough for our program, better than adequate. Jill always reminds me I can't use that word, better than adequate. Having the spaces, having where we can bring students together, and the kind of programming that you're all talking about tonight. So I hope it's kind of resonating with you and making sense. I get now why we're having this conversation.
Just to piggyback off that, the stadium is really not completely accessible. You can't get from the field up into the stands.
I've helped several.
Right.
Yep,
I've
I've personally helped several get around.
Yep. Without going out of the stadium and then going up and around.
Yep, agreed.
Just to talk about infrastructure real quick, as we add more technology and those types of things, making sure that our buildings can adequately house those. I know that one complaint that my student has is being able to plug in his laptop is a big frustration every day for them. And when we've tried to go in there and give maybe something to the teachers to help with that, we've been told we can't use it because it's a fire hazard, because the building itself is just not capable of the things that we wanted to bring in. So then they're just stuck with problems trying to plug in their laptops every day. That I know is a big frustration for them.
That doesn't sound 21st century to me. Can't plug something in? Great.
These would just be 2 requests or suggestions, I guess. I think what we're hearing is that families experience each building differently, but there are a lot of similarities amongst all of us about what we hear from our kids, what we see when we go to these buildings. So I would really, really, really strongly encourage, as you're making decisions, engage the parent groups in every building, because those are also the volunteers that will be communicating at that building level with the other parents. Here's what your kids are going to get from this. Here's what we're going to see in our own building improve. I think that goes a really long way to buy in, not only to vote, but then you get better ideas when you ask more people, and when you ask the people that are in the buildings week in and week out, including teachers and staff, of, what would make your day easier.
Emily, I agree. I call it the end users, right? The people that are using these things, and how's it working for them.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I appreciate that.
And then the other suggestion would just be to amplify the communication on this times a million. We need we need a full court press for reaching the parents in every building, because we're also the people, you know, we have the empty nest neighbors who we can say, oh, you haven't had a kid since 1990 in the schools? Let me tell you about it. Here's what we need. So not only making videos like that in our faces so that we know the language to use for people that say, I pay too many taxes anyway. You know, let me explain it to you because I understand it now. And just repeated basic bullet point level communication about the reasons why and the end goal that we're going for. I think the more the people in this room are the ones, you know, who are here to help you. So engage us with tools to communicate this.
Awesome. Really appreciate that. Yep.
Are the cities supportive of West Point School on referendum? Does that matter?
I think it matters. I will tell you.
I'm trying to put you on the spot. But I just don't know if on referendum if it matters or not.
I would tell you that I.
From that, piggybacking off of the where I live, and I'm soon to be an empty nester, so I'm one of those people who's living for this. One of those. But my neighborhood's like that. But to reach
Right.
people, I just thought about like the West Point magazine. That's a good way to reach those people that you aren't going to find another way to reach them. A lot of times I know in West Des Moines, Mayor Trimble does a nice good article, and the city manager does also. A number of times it's talking about how they decrease the tax levy. That always kind of seems to be a theme over the years, and maybe be able to flip that and somehow work with them to say, hey, we need some messaging on how having a strong school district, public school district helps the property values, as you alluded to before.
Yep. You got the mic, man.
I wasn't asking you. I was asking you.
Oh.
You're an innocent bystander.
I would tell you, one, I am proud of the relationship that the school district has with the city of Clive and the city of West Des Moines. So I've talked specifically to Matt McQuillan, city manager, so I know the two of you have probably talked. I think they love the synergy that can be created around something like this. Again, our conversations are about, let's not be redundant about the services. I will tell you that I've had a conversation with Tom Haddon. I haven't had my talk with Russ yet, but I've heard Russ talk. And Russ and I know Russ very well. He'll say property tax, but we've got to be responsible and we got to have great schools. I've heard him say that, so I'm not putting words in his mouth. He recognizes, and I've jokingly said that Russ and I talk about, it's like that peanut butter. You got chocolate on my peanut butter, I got peanut butter on your chocolate. I think we have to have a great city to have great schools. He thinks we need to have great schools to have a great city. And so we align perfectly in that. And that, obviously, we want to be able to do what we need to within that. And that is part of his message. So I'm not putting words in his mouth, but I am going to have a talk with him. I asked Greg Hudson, I said, you would make sure that Russ is on the same page with me here. And so, but I haven't talked to him yet.
I'd say that all the elected officials I'm aware of in Clive, but I'd say region-wide too, have healthy respect for other elected officials who are making tough calls at the school board level as well. And so they're sensitive about respecting those choices, those hard choices that come before each of the bodies. Similar to what you hear about West Des Moines, I could guarantee that Clive thinks about how Crestview and Indian Hills are a part of those neighborhoods. You can't have those neighborhoods without those schools there as well. And so finding the resonance between the needs of the school district and those unique buildings and also what the city needs to serve the neighborhoods, that's definitely on all of those elected officials' minds. Now, the same way that West Des Moines community schools could point to a consistently low property tax rate, cities of West Des Moines and Clive can as well, which becomes at times maybe too much of a self-fulfilling prophecy that we're just doing it for the sake of keeping it low. The bigger challenge, I think, is less going to be that, and now it's going to be if there's state preemption that's going to further restrict the way that we are doing revenues for cities and for school districts. But superintendents, city managers, city council members, school board members, if you show them where the goalposts are, they're really, really good at putting it right between, getting the ball through. So whatever the state may choose to do, we can be creative with our solutions and make sure that we keep delivering the greatest value for taxpayers.
Appreciate that.
That was a good comment about getting the information out there, reaching out to voters. And one way we could do that is utilizing the video boards at the stadium and in the field house. I keep coming back to the same thing. But we can get that message up on those video boards, vote yes, and reasons why you should vote yes. So something we should consider doing.
It can be a multi-phased attack, like to hit all the age groups, all the demographics. So,
And you're one
in
of the-
other languages to reach all our
Love it.
communities.
You're one of the phases. So if something resonated with you tonight that you heard, tell about 3, 4, 5 people. Think about your circle of influence. If something didn't resonate with you, just forget that you were here. Okay?
Yeah.
But that's really getting that message out, and we've got a kind of a communication plan for that. So really important to us. I'm going to just draw it to a close by talking a little bit about the timeline. You're more than welcome to come back tomorrow night. We're going to host another one tomorrow night, same place, same time, 6 to 7:30. Here's kind of our timeline, and I've got the architects over there sweating a little bit because it is a pretty tight timeline. If I were to back it off from November 4th of 2025, because that's when we're going to go in front of the voters and say, will you support da 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 da. We've got to put some concepts together and then share those with you. So between the listening tours, which will finish tomorrow, we've got till August 11th. You got till August 11th to kind of digest what we heard. And I'm going to tell you this, and you use the word trust. We don't have any preconceived ideas. We don't. We really don't. We're using this, we're triangulating our data between tonight, the survey, and what we know about our buildings, because we do know a lot about our buildings, to try to put this all together and then figure out how to put a plan together that does exactly what you were talking about, making sure regardless where you go to school, you have similar experience as it relates to our facilities. So on August 11th, we're going to do a workshop with the board. We're going to share some concepts based on the things that we heard. I'll tell you what's really exciting is the survey, loud and clear, families wanted classrooms modernized and updated and supportive of students. And that was kind of already in our plan already, so that was really nice. We knew we wanted to do that. And from there, these ideas are what are going to help kind of elevate that plan. From August 11th, I'm assuming we're going to get some kind of direction from the board, and that direction could be go get more feedback. That direction could be take that concept and expand it a little bit and test it out there. And so by August 25th, so in that 2-week period, we're going to try to solidify that because, correct me if I'm wrong, August 25 is kind of the day where we have to have language ready to submit in order to have it on the ballot on November 4th. So then from August 25th to November 4th, that's the full court press. Here's what we're thinking about doing with what we've asked that we're going to ask you to vote on. And I'm going to need your help. If it's something that's really resonating with you, I think over nearly 300 people wrote to us that they would be supportive of plugging in a way. I'm going to need your help. So that's kind of the timeline that we're looking at between now and November 4th. Any questions as it relates to the timeline? And I think I was accurate. Did I get that right, everybody? Are you fact-checking me? Did I get that right? Okay. Jill, you know what? I'm going to give you the last word. I'm giving you the last word. Yeah.
Thank everybody for coming. We really appreciate it. The board is really committed to give feedback from the community. And we really haven't, we don't have any secret plan, as Matt was saying. We really want to hear what the community needs and what you feel like your students and your kids and will make their experience even better. So dream big and let us
Absolutely.
bring this across the finish line and really get you what your kids in our community.
Yeah. And quite frankly, how cool is that? Finette Elliott, board member, sitting in the audience, taking copious notes. I might need some of those. Elizabeth Larson, board member. She had to just sneak out. She's been here all night. Dr. Jill Johnson, board member. Lila Starr, board member. So I got 4 board members just listening quietly because they really want your feedback related to what we're doing here. So thank you, all 4 of you, for being here tonight as well. Again, join us tomorrow night if you'd like. Thank you so much for giving up your time tonight.
Thank you.
Yep. And I apologize. Did anything come across the screen? Okay. I meant to ask, is there any